Hello, everybody. I wanted to do a quick video talking a little bit about Paul. Paul, of course, is a young man. He's 25 right now. He's currently a state prisoner in federal prison. He was not charged or convicted federally. He was charged with providing material support at the state level. This is in connection to the FBI's Governor Gretchen Whitmer fednapping, kidnap plot hoax. So 5 men have been acquitted, as you guys know. There were 5 men that were unfairly and unjustly and wrongly framed in this case. I won't even say entrapped, although it did involve elements of entrapment. But I want to talk a little bit about Paul. I have some pictures of Paul here. That's Paul with his dad and his family. I have, of course, covered the faces of his family members and friends just out of respect for them and their privacy. But I want to show you who he really is versus, the mugshot that you see of somebody, or maybe just the images you see from them at trial. That doesn't really show you who they are. And Paul, of course, joined the Army in 2015. He enlisted, and I have pictures of that here. That was something that he really enjoyed, the camaraderie of, but he did, of course, get PTSD, which he still suffers from, and it's very hard for him. This is him with his brothers. They all look like his dad. It's so funny. He looks so much like his dad, but his brothers do also. When Paul was 14 years old, he joined the Milford Fire Department. And you can see him here at 14 years old. He'd probably get so mad at me if he knew that I put this picture of him as a kid, but it's so adorable. I think it's so cute. That's him and his dad. That this middle picture here, they used to do the events at the fair. They would kind of run the booth there, from what I understand, and that was him and his dad. And then you can see him with one of the kids there. So Paul, when he was a kid, growing up, he was always very pro police, pro law enforcement, pro military. In fact, he he got in trouble at school because he liked to draw pictures of army guys and police, and they thought that that was too aggressive. It's oh, this is toxic masculinity. You know how just boys being boys and being normal boys, they call that toxic now. I guess he got in trouble for just being a boy and liking the army and police, and he always wanted to protect people. That was something that from a young age he wanted to do, and that is a part of the reason why at 14 years old he convinced his brother to take him down to enlist in the Cadet Explorer Program at the Milford Fire Department. And they kind of had him doing first responder stuff. I mean, he was responding to crazy suicide calls at 14 years old. So while he's in school, he is going on calls that trained professional adults would have trauma from seeing. They were just taking him out on these calls. I don't know how this happened, but it did. And so because of that, he developed PTSD and anxiety. He saw things at a very young age that he shouldn't have seen. He became an expert shooter while he was in the Army. We have pictures of him at Fort Jackson there. He got an expert medal for that. He was trained on gun safety. Now, some of the calls he went on that scared his dad was more the calls like a live wired that was down, something where it could be less that it's an emergency call that would be scary, but something where somebody could make a small mistake that could really endanger him. And this is a 14-year-old kid going on these calls. When he was at the fire department at one point, I think at 15 years old, he was responding to some kind of call. And if they're in the cadet program, they're not supposed to go inside with the other firefighters, but for whatever reason, one of these guys brought Paul in, gives him the hose, and this is a room full of flames, and then tells him to just stand there and try to put out the flames. And of course, you know, he was never inside a building before. That they're supposed to be kept outside, the cadets, but this happened. So he's doing something that a 15-year-old should not be doing, and of course that's going to give you nightmares and PTSD. He said that he was very traumatized from the suicide calls that they would take him on, because he would have nightmares of children screaming. He felt disgust from what he saw. And then yeah, so they just taking him in there and leaving him in there was crazy. He got very high scores on the first responder calls at the cadet program. Some other things happened as well. So you can see him here when he's in the Army. Let's see. His story never changed from the time he got arrested up until now. His story has remained the same. Nobody believed that he was guilty. None of the local people there, not even some of the people in the prison where he was held. And so there's just, you know, these are like our best, they go after our best men to target and frame. You know, when he was in the Army, they give you something called a battle buddy. And that's something that they all get. And your battle buddy is somebody that you, from what I understand, you go through basic training with them, and then you usually get deployed with them. And you kind of, that's your person. You guys stick together. You have each other's backs. And, you know, that's like your partner, basically. And so he ended up he was discharged from the Army because of his injuries. It made it difficult for him to continue, but his battle buddy stayed in, and then he ended up getting killed. And Paul, this is something that he never forgave himself for. He always felt like he should have been there for him. So he has PTSD from that on top of this. And remember, when he was arrested, he was just 21 years old. So he's done all of these things before being even like 21 years old. And then remember everything that happened during the summer of 2020. We know that there was a major mental health crisis during the lockdowns, and that suicides increased, and people who already were struggling with things like PTSD, anxiety, and depression were particularly vulnerable, especially if they were prevented from being able to work because of very stringent policies that shut down even barbershops, where you couldn't even go get your hair cut, and things of this nature. So that has to be kept in mind. But there's nothing in any of the evidence that shows him doing anything. And again, he moved in like July, I believe, of 2020, well before anything happened, August, September, October, and yet they still rolled him up for this. And there was no reason for that. He only attended, I think, maybe one or two of these FTXs, and at one of them, he wrote down a note that he wrote down for the I think it was ambush training or something. He wrote down on this paper, Dan is teaching this because I don't know SHIT about it, on the FTX paperwork. So that just shows you right there, CHS Dan, the informant, was leading that training. That's something I want to get access to. And there's a lot of other stuff. But yeah, as far as I can see, there's nothing in here that shows he knew about or did anything. It's like, oh, well, you posted some memes, you said some offensive things, and then all of this exculpatory evidence we won't allow people to see or hear. I mean, the whole thing was just a setup, and it's very sad and tragic. I had sent him a Christmas card, which I just got returned to me today. Returned to sender, unable to forward, and refused, and they just write RTS, no cards. So it makes me so angry, because I sent him a Christmas card I wanted him to get, and I could understand people are making the argument that, you know, oh, they because apparently this has happened where people will somehow smuggle drugs through the ink on these cards or something, or the cards could be, if the thickness of the card is a certain amount of thickness, it could be turned into like a makeshift shiv or whatever. I understand that argument. However, this is 2024, guys. They're scanning everything coming into the mailroom anyways. If you guys don't understand how that works, all of our correspondence, all of the mail is surveilled, monitored by the government. They're scanning everything and putting it in files. So you couldn't make a photocopy of that and give him a photocopy. You don't have to give them the Christmas card, but I specifically picked light colored cards because I thought they would get a photocopy of them. I wasn't expecting him to get the actual card itself. I thought they would make a copy of the front of the card and the back of the card, and that he would get that. And there's no reason that they can't do that. There's no reason that they shouldn't be doing that, even if they didn't have a photocopier. They're scanning everything. You can't just print out a page that you just scanned in, and then, you don't have to deliver the actual card itself. It's just absurd, guys. They are just doing this to be malicious. In any case, I'm going to have to retype this all out, everything that was in the card, and send it again. And it's just sad because my daughter had drawn some pictures of Pokemons and stuff like that, and I included one of those pictures in there, so he's not going to get to see that, and I told him to be looking out for the card and the picture, and now I have to tell him it's not coming, and we'll have to do another picture for him. He's actually a really good artist, so he's going to draw a picture as well, but if you'd like to send him something, he did get the book I sent. You can send books to him. They have to be sent from the publisher. So if you go to Amazon, you can order a book on Amazon. Keep them, please, faith-based. Just look up in Amazon Christian books. You can find study Bibles. You can find all different kinds of Christian books. They can also be legal books. The things that could teach him, help him prepare for making legal arguments, things like that. You can get puzzle books, Sudoku books, word puzzle books. There are very cheap ones that are just a couple dollars. They have to be paperback. They can be sent from Amazon and delivered directly to the facility. You can see how I've written the address there. You can go ahead and take a screenshot of this so you have the address, and if you'd like to send him a puzzle book, anything that keeps their mind engaged and keeps them busy, because time moves differently for them. It basically stands still for them, and everybody else is moving. It feels to them like everybody on the outside is moving on without them, and that time and life is moving on without them, and they feel like they're just stuck at a standstill. And so anything that keeps the mind engaged and active, I think, would be helpful. If you want to write to him, let him know that he's not forgotten about, and people understand the travesty of what happened and are praying for him. I just ask that you be respectful in these letters and keep them very positive and uplifting. Don't ask him anything about his case, because if you do, number one, they're probably not going to give the letter, but number two, understand that they're looking for anything they can twist and take out of context and use against him, and that could possibly harm his appeal. And his appeals brief is due this next month, and I'm very concerned about that. And I have concerns also about the legal representation that these men are getting, all of them. Yeah, it doesn't seem like their lawyers are interested in actually doing anything. It's like they put up the appearance of making it look like they're trying to do something, but they're really not doing anything. And that's depressing. So please keep Paul in your prayers. Reach out to him if you want. Send him a book, send him a letter, maybe send him a puzzle book. I know he would appreciate all of that. Just don't send a card, because it will be returned, apparently, just to be cruel. And remember that Paul was framed, and he is a good man. He's a family man. He's got a lot of brothers and sisters and people who love him and miss him and understand that he didn't do anything wrong. And yeah, and this is what happens, and it can happen to you. You can literally just be at the wrong place at the wrong time. You can walk into an active TEI investigation, and you can be framed and have these courts rigged against you. It can happen to you. Everybody says, well, that wouldn't happen to me. I'm not in a group or blah, 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 blah. I wouldn't put myself in that situation. You have no idea. If you weren't there listening to every single day of all 4 of these trials, you don't know what happened and you don't understand. So that's all I have for now. I will talk to you guys later. And please share this. If you found this informative and helpful, please share it, like it, comment, all of that stuff. It helps. Thank you.